We're here to prove it's possible, not just for us, but for every woman brave enough to go for more. We believe success is sweeter when it's shared, and that your next level comes faster when you're surrounded by women who truly get it. This episode is brought to you by the Ultimate Girls Trip Business Mastermind Retreat, where big goals, belly laughs, and bold action all belong in the same room.
Hi guys, welcome back to Proof It's Possible. Dale is not here. It is just me, Jamie, and a really exciting guest, somebody that I'm so pumped to chit chat with because I find her area of work just completely fascinating. But today we have Julie Cyvonne, and she is a psychedelic facilitator. So I cannot wait to dive right in. So Julie, can you tell us a little bit about what you do? What does it mean to be Yes. Sorry, what does it mean to be a psychedelic facilitator?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, Jamie. It's great to officially get to meet you. I was chatting with Dale before. I'm sorry that she's not feeling well. But yeah, so psychedelic facilitation is really the process of guiding someone through the intentional use of psychedelics. And psychedelics, that is psilocybin. That's what I work with. Magic mushrooms. We also think about sometimes like ayahuasca is a popular one that comes up in people's minds, but it is not, just taking something to have a good time. Where I know, many of people have had a recreational experience, which I think is beautiful. Of no judgment against recreational experiences, but like going to perhaps like a concert or something like that. This is not what my work is. It is with the aim in mind, whether that be for healing, for expansion, for clarity. And there is a lot that you can do with like the directed use of a psychedelic.
Okay. Before we even begin, what are your thoughts on, I guess, can you describe to our audience, someone who's like, what? I've never heard of this before, what it means to microdose so that they have an idea of like what that entails?
Yeah, so microdosing is taking a subperceptual amount of a substance. It doesn't specifically refer to one thing in particular, right? And I don't even necessarily want to say subperceptual because I think what a lot of your listeners might have heard is people microdosing GLP-1s. So it just means taking a fraction of a full dose. So in the case
Is this
of
like a daily thing?
So one of my biggest pet peeves is when I hear people say, I microdose all the time. I microdose every day. And I'm thinking, well, you shouldn't. Not because it's going to hurt them, but simply because psychedelics in particular build up tolerance very quickly. So like, let's say you truly are microdosing every day. You're microdosing, Monday through Sunday for several months. It stopped being effective, honestly, probably before the first full month of you doing that, because your brain habituates very quickly. So you want to be following a protocol, which is just a fancy name for a schedule of both on and off days for a set amount of time. Traditionally, I like to recommend people follow a protocol for 30 days and then they take an integration break of doing no on days at all. But for someone who perhaps is dealing with my fibromyalgia babes, I have a lot of women who are struggling with fibromyalgia pain that come to the practice of microdosing, or my ladies who have perhaps treatment resistant depression or a long time of SSRI use. I might have them do it a longer amount of time for their first round, but at max 90 days of following a set protocol.
Okay, fascinating. And like when you say microdosing, are we talking like a tea, a pill, a straight up mushroom that you put on your pizza? Like what are we talking about here?
I prefer to work with capsules, and there are a few different reasons. One, I work with 3 different companies, and when I say I work with them, it's not that like you have to use one of those companies if you work with me, but those are the companies that I personally guarantee that if you want to make sure you receive them in the mail, that they are exactly what they say they are, then these are the 3 companies you must order in order to receive that guarantee from me. And all of the capsules just contain ground up psilocybe. So there are a variety of different kinds of mushrooms. There are morel mushrooms, which are really tasty in cooking, right? Psychedelic mushrooms are psilocybes. So that is like the class of mushroom. They're functional mushrooms. We think of reishi, cordyceps, etc. So it's ground up psilocybes. Some of the companies will ground up functional mushrooms like that Lion's Mane and put them in there. And I have one company in particular that I work with. She is an herbologist or an herbalist. And so she creates her own like unique brand of microdosing capsules, and the things that she puts in the capsule, like Blue Lotus, they're all intended, like it's a very intentional process for her of why she puts it in there. I, don't even pretend to know anything about that, but it is a really lovely blend that she makes. So I like capsules because they are pre-measured. They are exactly what they say they're going to be if you work with my companies. And you know that it is the dosage that it says it is versus, and this isn't my companies in particular, but it is well documented, and there have been lots of, reports on people testing gummy microdosing capsules that they've purchased, chocolate
Yeah.
microdosing like squares, and they're testing it and they're not finding any psilocybin in it. So what that tells me either is like the product is, false advertising, or the thing about edibles I just don't like. And I mean, this is true in cannabis for me as well. It's like, you don't really know that in that one square or gummy or whatever it is what it says it's going to be, like dosage wise, versus if you truly just grind up mushrooms and put them in a pill that looks like a vitamin, right? Then you know that it is exactly what it says it is, and you can measure it and you can test it and like ensure the accuracy.
Okay, so let's just say that I can't, like, do you have you mentioned some health concerns and some mental health concerns or reasons that people would come seek out your services. So let's say I had, I was struggling with depression or something and I came to see you. What does that transformation kind of look like? Like, can you give our listeners like an idea of the before and the after?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share my own personal journey, because that's
Yeah,
definitely why I
okay.
came to the process of microdosing in the first place. I really struggled with anxiety and depression for decades, and my unique flavor of anxiety was really intense rumination, like looping, and also I call it apocalyptic thinking, where it's like everything is the worst case scenario. Like, let's say you're my bestie, and you kind of say like you use a period instead of an exclamation point in a text, right? I'm thinking, oh my God, she hates me. Like she's mad at me. What's going on? Right. And
Okay.
it's a hyper fixation on like worst case scenarios. And man, my mind was not a fun place to be, honestly. And I would do things like party and, try to binge on Netflix or eat food in order to quiet down the voice in my head, because it was just so overwhelming and so oppressive. And so through the process of microdosing, a few different rounds, a few different protocols, right? And then pairing that practice of microdosing with intentional relearning, because that's kind of what I was seeing. I was like, I'd gone to therapy, I tried the prescriptions. Therapy, I felt very re-traumatizing. Like every single week, she was telling me, your dad died and your mom messed you up when you were little. And I was like, congratulations, Deborah. Do you want a cookie? Like, what am I getting out of this? I could have, like, I came here and told you that, and now you're just parroting back at me. I want to do something with this information.
Yes.
Prozac, I found to be very numbing, right? Like, so I do think like I needed it in that moment because my low was really low. And so it kind of raised my baseline, but then it really dulled the high as well. There wasn't really any enjoyment. My life was sort of in grayscale. I felt like a zombie. And that wasn't what I wanted either, right? I didn't want to not feel anything. I just wanted to be able to feel the less intensity of my sadness. And then I found a lot of relief from coaching. So I used to be an attorney, and I hired a coach at one point when I was practicing as an attorney. And in the pandemic, when things were like more in flux, and I was thinking, wow, I've been doing this for 3 years. I've done a few different practice areas. I just don't enjoy the work of being an attorney. I don't enjoy the lifestyle. So I signed up for a coaching training, and that was amazing. I got so much out of it. I feel like coaching is really forward focused. It's solution oriented. It felt really empowering. So I knew that I had done a lot of good work on myself. It wasn't like I, was just waiting for a magic pill to come change my life, but it felt like for whatever reason, despite my best efforts, my brain wasn't meeting me where like my effort was in terms of wanting to feel better. And I really got curious for like, why is that? And so I discovered that certain people have really rigid brains, meaning the grooves in their brain, the connections, the neural patterning is really well worn. So that is people with anxiety, depression, addiction, OCD, PTSD. It's like you're just defaulting to the path of least resistance over and over. And I think the clearest example of that is like addiction, right? There's
Yes.
something that makes it really hard to say no to the drink or, smoking or whatever it is for you. So I got really interested in that aspect of it, decided to be my first guinea pig as I was delving into the research, facilitation, all sorts of things. And I paired microdosing with intentional relearning tools. And that's been 5 years ago. And I don't have anxiety or depression anymore. I truly healed it at the root. And so I just want to like people out there who feel like they have no other option but to take a pill or feel like I don't understand why none of this is working for me. Like there are other options available to you.
Okay, this is totally amazing to me. I did not know you were an attorney before, which I also think is like so key to the story because when people have these, like, what would be considered a very noble and successful job in the eyes of, the vast majority, and then they have this like life altering experience, and then they completely forego their old life and start this new life, I'm always like, wow, that took a lot of courage. Like, I mean, you invested a lot of time, money, energy into becoming an attorney to just one day be like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do something else. Something that is like a little bit risque, I would say. Like, it's not mainstream. It's not necessarily the easiest path. So I think that's like amazing. And I always love to hear that. The second thing is that you're now dabbling in something that I always considered to be illegal. So can you talk to me a little bit about that? Because like me, as a total rule follower, I'm so interested in this. I want to have this experience. I want to have like I haven't considered necessarily microdosing, but more of like a grander scale, like a one-time event. I don't know what you call that, but a friend of mine did it and she's like, oh, it'll totally change your life. And I was like, oh man, that's really intriguing to me. So I've thought about it a lot. And then I'm like, but isn't it illegal? Like, what are your thoughts on that? As an ex-attorney or someone who studied the law, what are your thoughts on that? For someone like me who's like, okay, I want to do it, but isn't this illegal?
Yeah, so just to circle back briefly before I fully answer your question, like the larger experience is what people come to my retreats for. So I don't do that virtually. I think it's really important to be guided and have someone there, in person. Just seeing, big feelings come up and it's harder to walk to the bathroom and things like that. So it is something that I do in real life with people. And then when it comes to the legality, I was just having a conversation with one of my biz mentors, and we were talking about sort of the J curve or the hockey stick. I know you're in Canada, of where we are right now with psychedelics, right? And it's the same place we were with cannabis, I would say about 12 years ago, where there's a lot of resistance to overcome in people's preconceived notions and the shifting landscape in terms of legalities. And I think we're right at sort of like the bottom of the J curve as we're like coming up. And I think it's soon going to take off just like cannabis did. But right now, I mean, in the United States where I am, it's really confusing because certain states, so we have Oregon, we have Colorado, parts of California. So Washington, D.C. itself, like you can go into a dispensary and buy psilocybin microdosing gummies and things like that.
Okay.
So it's not consistent, but also, we still face like inconsistency with federal versus state legislation around cannabis as well. Ultimately, it's not a concern for me in my microdosing practice because I don't sell, distribute, profit off of the sale of the capsules themselves. I have no interest in being in manufacturing. I'm a guide, I'm a facilitator. And so in that way, like I feel very protected. And my retreats, it is a concern. So there's definitely a vetting process, to make sure that this is the right thing for you, right? So just thinking of a few things off the top of my head. If you experience schizophrenia, any sort of psychosis, bipolar that has like a strong like manic episodes, this is not the right avenue for you.
Yeah.
Simply because at the end of the day, what psychedelics are doing are increasing neuroplasticity, which is neural modulation. And those diagnoses, they already experience too much modulation. Like the excess of modulation is what's like of entropy, right? Is what's like the issue. And so we don't want to add more fuel to the fire. So there's definitely a vetting process to make sure it's the right thing for people. And is it something I get concerned about? I mean, it depends on the location of my retreat. Yes. But I am very like discreet in how, I mean, you can go on my website and you can see where they are or whatever, but like we'd have to talk. It would take a lot for someone to
What is your website?
just signed up essentially to know like fully what's happening.
For sure. What is your website for anyone who's listening who's like, ooh, this sounds like something I want to do?
Yeah, JulieCyvonne.com. So JulieCyvonne.com. There's a retreat page built out. I'll say it is a concern, but like I believe in it. I believe in this work so wholeheartedly. I believe in it so much more. And I'm not like a big pharma conspiracist necessarily, but I would say pharmaceuticals don't heal anything. They're masking your symptoms. They're not making you better, at least when it comes to SSRIs, SNRIs, things like that. And this is a true root cause healing. And it is my life's work. I feel very passionate about it, and like nothing's going to stop me.
Okay, that's amazing. I love that. I love that passion and I love that fuel. So what are some of the biggest mistakes people make when they are starting a microdosing practice or even a retreat style kind of experience?
So for retreats, I would say the biggest issue that I have with my field is that I'm the only person I know who has integration built into retreats. The psychedelic experience is beautiful. It's really eye-opening. It is unlike anything else. And it's only 3% of the work. right? It feels really easy and clear and empowering in the trip itself to say, I know that I need to quit this job, that I get to stop scrolling on my phone because my family and my children deserve my attention, that this relationship I'm in is no longer aligned. Actually executing on the things, embodying the changes, the downloads, the clarity you had in the trip is a whole other beast. It is 97% of the work, and most people don't do it. She was sharing with me about her friend who paid like so much to go to this like transformational blah, 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 blah. And she said like they just sent her home afterwards. And it was like thousands of dollars to do something, right? And then they just sent them home with no sort of support in the after. And it's like, what are you supposed to do with that? She said her friend felt so discombobulated she had to go do another one just to like get her head on straight and figure out what to do with the first one. And so that is my huge issue. I don't see anyone else having built-in integration in their retreat. So in my mind, if you want to pay for a retreat and there's no built-in integration, that's fine. But like, just know you're paying for a very expensive recreational experience. If you want to have true change and transformation, make sure that your retreat includes that, or you're seeking out some sort of facilitator afterward who specializes in integration that's going to help you make sense of the experience. And then when it comes to microdosing, I mean, don't do it every day. Stop that. There's tons of protocols, right? There's protocols for creativity. There's protocols for anxiety in particular. There's protocols for treatment-resistant depression or persistent pain. So find the right protocol for you, and then make sure you're doing something with it. This doesn't have to be some like grand, I spend 3 hours in a holotropic breathwork practice every day while I microdose. 15 minutes of journaling, of prayer, of mindful movement, go for a walk without your phone, like something that's making the most of the increased neuromodulation.
Okay. So if somebody is listening to this and they're like, okay, well, I don't necessarily have like full on depression, or I don't neatly fit into any of the examples that you've used here today. Would you say that there's other reasons somebody might choose to microdose? Like, do you have like an area of expertise outside of what you've already listed, or a clientele base that's, has one kind of particular thing in common? Like, is it for the people that are just kind of feeling like the dull of everyday life or the mundane of everyday life? Or is it for only the kind of extreme cases where it's like, oh, I'm fully depressed, or I'm fully, have this physical pain or something like that?
Yeah, I like to say that if you're microdosing for mental health and that's all that you're doing with it to get relief, like it's such a worthy cause, right? Like that's why I started microdosing, and it's life-changing. There's no price tag on no longer having anxiety and depression, but it's also like buying a Ferrari and just driving it to the grocery store. Like you're not seeing the full picture of what's possible. I really enjoy working with high performing women who are curious to know like how good can it get to make their brains work for them and not against them, and to help create a life of inner satisfaction that matches the life that they've created in outer satisfaction, whether that be, where their business growth is, or I know a lot of people who seem to like have this picture perfect life, and they've come to the practice of microdosing because they're like, I just can't enjoy it. My mind isn't like, they might not be anxious or depressed or feel like they fit neatly within any of those categories, but there is a piece of them that like, there's always on to the next thing. They're not present with their children. They feel like they need to have the glass of wine at night in order to just like take the edge off the day. And you don't have to. This isn't a judgment, but you don't have to. There's a way to actually enjoy life that doesn't require, scrolling on Instagram or having that like third glass of Chardonnay. So I really enjoy working with women in that space. And I would say like there's so much expansion possible with microdosing, right? It really is like mental health is just the tip of the iceberg. We're really just touching like a little bit of what's possible.
Absolutely. And I feel like there's so much mental health, the mental health is different than it was 20 years ago, 30 years, 40 years ago. Like we're dealing with a whole new beast with social media, isolation, COVID, online bullying. Like there's just a whole bunch of marketing. Like, I mean, the marketing that comes with social media and scrolling on our phones and things like that can really suck people out of their happiness and into depression, anxiety, comparison, all of that. So I am so fascinated by this, and I'm so curious about your retreats and also microdosing. If somebody is listening and they're like, wow, this totally sounds like something I do. So microdosing, you can do kind of like a digital experience with you, or like an online experience versus an in-person, and then retreats are strictly in person, or tell me a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah, so I do microdose I support people in their microdosing journeys in the US and Canada. One of my companies is a Canadian company, and that is virtual, right? There are some DIY options where one of my favorite things is a text program that I have. So you activate the text and you receive text every day for 30 days to help you integrate and maximize all of the neuroplasticity that's going on in your brain. That one's really around habit stacking. It's super cool. But there's also like, if you really are looking for, no, I want this like larger experience. I want to have live support, live meaning like on Zoom. I have very specific goals that I'm looking to like cause and create. Then awesome. That's definitely an option too. And there are some options in between, but that is at this time, I only have ever done that virtually. I think it would be really cool to have an experience, maybe like a one-day experience where people can come, and if they really feel nervous to microdose alone, which I just want to say there is no worry around that. I like to say for a lot of my ladies, if you're like feeling a little concerned, just wait and you can take your microdose when we start our first call, and you'll see by the end of it that everything's still the same. You're totally fine. I think that could be really cool down the road, but my retreats are all in person, and they're small. They're only 5 women. This isn't like Rhythmia in Costa Rica where there's
How often do you do them?
every other month. So every other month, mostly in the US, although 2 next year, 1 in Costa Rica, 1 in Mexico.
Are you comfortable sharing where in the United States, in case there's listeners that are like, oh, that's my state, or I love to travel there?
Yep. So I don't know when this is popping out, but November is going to be in Scottsdale. This is the year 2025. Over New Year's in Costa Rica. March in Diamond Head, Mississippi. So that's like Florida, Alabama, those like really white beaches. That's why I picked that one. And I have a lot of Southern listeners who are like, I want to have you have a retreat somewhere closer to me. So that's awesome. That one's in the beginning of March. I have Mexico, Puerto Escondido at the beginning of May, Lake Tahoe at the end of July, Vermont for leaf peeping in the end of September 2026, and then San Diego next November 2026.
Okay, so like you are really spread out. That's amazing. There's something for everyone.
That's
regardless of what side of the country you're on or what side you're interested in traveling to. So that is really cool. And if people want to find you, what is your Instagram handle?
Yeah, just Julie Cyvonne, just my name, JulieCyvonne. I'm super happy to, obviously, I'm very passionate about talking about this. Or if you're like, I'm curious, I don't even know that I really want to like say anything to her. You can DM me the word journey, and ManyChat will send you my free quiz to find out whether microdosing is a good fit for you at all. So that's totally an option for you. And I won't even know. You can bypass the whole conversation.
I love that, because there are people that are like, I kind of want to do this in private. I don't want anyone to know that I'm inquiring about this. So that's a really cool option. Okay, my very last question for you is, what is your proof it's possible moment? Like, when did you realize like anything is, proof that anything is possible?
I will say you're right. Like, this has been a big departure from the law, and it's a very hard. One of my mentors would say I picked an industry with a lot of headwinds. There's a lot that I'm up against, whether it be misinformation, preconceived notions, not clearly understanding that this is something that you like want or need a facilitator around, and like what's possible with guided facilitated use. So it's challenging, but last year was my first year where that I was like in the green, and I had a profit margin because it's difficult. It is difficult, and you definitely like get to invest in yourself and the business before sometimes you get proof that it's happening. So it felt really good to get there last year and think like, okay, like this is happening.
Totally. And it's not easy to be a trailblazer. It's not easy to go down a road that is not well traveled, so kudos to you. That's amazing. And I am so excited to hear about all the life-changing transformations that are in your future, including mine, because I will be joining you at one of your retreats, because I'm just like fascinated by this. So we're so happy to have you on the podcast today. If anybody is interested in reaching out to her, she's given you some options. Julie Cyvonne, and thank you until next time. Bye, guys.
We are so grateful you're here.
It would mean the world to us if you'll subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel and leave us a review.
If you want to hear more from us, go to proofitspossible.com to join our mailing list and find our social links so you don't miss a thing.
Thanks, and chat next time.